So let me get this straight. After years of telling us that the Shield was dead and buried, after Roman Reigns spent the last 4 years building the most dominant faction in WWE history, after Seth Rollins literally destroyed the Brotherhood for a briefcase, now they want us to believe they're brothers again? And Triple H is backstage orchestrating this reunion like some puppet master? Are you kidding me right now? Because here's what really happened backstage at Monday Night Raw, and trust me, this is where things get absolutely insane. Multiple sources are confirming that Triple H called an emergency meeting with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins in his office, and what went down in that room is about to change everything we thought we knew about WWE's power structure. And I'm telling you right now, if you think this is just another feel-good reunion story, you haven't been paying attention to what's actually happening behind the scenes. Let's talk about the real story here. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the man who held the Universal Championship for over 1,200 days, the guy who told us repeatedly that he doesn't need the Shield anymore, suddenly shows up to a backstage meeting with Triple H and Seth Rollins? The same Seth Rollins who turned his back on the Shield, the same Seth Rollins who cashed in Money in the Bank on Roman at WrestleMania, the same Seth Rollins who has been throwing shade at Roman for years about who's the real leader of WWE? Something doesn't add up here, and I'm going to break down exactly what's happening. First, let's address the elephant in the room. This isn't about brotherhood. This isn't about loyalty. This isn't even about nostalgia. This is about survival. Because here's what nobody's talking about: Roman Reigns is in serious trouble right now. Solo Sikoa has completely hijacked the bloodline. He's got Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu running roughshod over the entire roster. Jimmy USO is conflicted, GUSO is on a completely different brand doing his own thing, and Roman is alone for the first time in years. The tribal chief has been dethroned, not just by losing his title, but by losing his entire power structure. And now, suddenly, conveniently, he's willing to team up with the man who stabbed him in the back all those years ago. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Seth Rollins has his own problems. The visionary, Mr. Monday Night Raw, the guy who's been carrying that brand on his back for the past year, he's been dealing with his own demons. Bronson Reed has been absolutely destroying him week after week. The attack at SummerSlam, the multiple sentence, the sheer brutality that Reed has unleashed on Rollins has left Seth looking vulnerable for the first time in years. So when Triple H comes calling with an offer to reunite with Roman Reigns, you better believe Seth is listening. Because right now, Seth Rollins needs all the help he can get. And that's where Triple H comes in. The game. The cerebral assassin. The chief content officer of WWE. This man has been playing four-dimensional chess since he took over creative, and the Shield reunion? This is his masterstroke. Think about it. Triple H knows exactly what he's doing here. He's taking the two biggest stars from the previous era, two men who hate each other with a passion that's been documented for over a decade, and he's forcing them into a situation where they have no choice but to work together. This isn't Vince McMahon's WWE anymore, where storylines happen randomly. This is calculated. This is strategic. This is Triple H doing what he does best, creating controversy and ratings gold. Sources close to the situation are telling us that the backstage meeting was intense. We're hearing that Roman walked into Triple H's office with that stone-cold tribal chief energy, refusing to even acknowledge Seth at first. Can you imagine the tension in that room? These two men, arguably the two biggest stars WWE has produced in the last 15 years, standing face to face, with Triple H sitting behind his desk like a mob boss orchestrating a truce between rival families. And here's the kicker: Triple H allegedly told them straight up that they don't have to like each other, but they will work together. Because if they don't, both of them are going to get swallowed up by the chaos that's currently consuming both Raw and SmackDown. Now let's talk about what this actually means for WWE moving forward. Because this isn't just about Roman and Seth. Oh no. This is about a complete paradigm shift in how WWE operates. Triple H is essentially creating a new era where the old guard has to band together to fight against the new wave of destruction that's taking over. Solo Sikoa's bloodline, Bronson Reed, Gunther's dominance, the entire landscape is changing, and Roman and Seth are being positioned as the last line of defense for the previous generation. But here's what has me absolutely furious about this whole situation. WWE is banking on our nostalgia. They're banking on the fact that we loved the Shield so much that we'll just accept this reunion without questioning the logic behind it. They're hoping we'll forget that Seth Rollins betrayed the Shield in the most heinous way possible. They're hoping we'll forget that Roman Reigns has spent years establishing himself as someone who doesn't need partners, who doesn't need backup, who rules through dominance and family loyalty. And now, just because it's convenient for the storyline, we're supposed to believe that all of that character development, all of that history, all of that animosity just disappears because Triple H says so? And don't even get me started on what this means for Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley. The real lunatic fringe, the guy who left WWE because he was tired of the corporate machine, the guy who's now thriving in AEW as a legitimate badass who doesn't play by anyone's rules. The Shield was 3 men. It was a brotherhood of 3. And now WWE wants to rewrite history and pretend that the Shield can exist with just Roman and Seth? That's not the Shield. That's just two former members teaming up out of desperation. Where's the honor in that? Where's the legacy in that? But let's be real for a second. As much as this makes me angry, as much as this feels like WWE manipulating our emotions for ratings, I can't look away. And that's the genius of what Triple H is doing here. He knows that this is controversial. He knows that fans are going to be divided on this. He knows that people like me are going to make videos ranting about how this doesn't make sense, how this is disrespectful to the Shield's legacy, how this is just corporate wrestling at its most cynical. And you know what? That's exactly what he wants. Because controversy creates conversation, and conversation creates engagement, and engagement creates ratings and revenue. The meeting reportedly lasted over 45 minutes. 45 minutes. That's an eternity in WWE backstage meeting terms. We're hearing that there were multiple heated exchanges, that at one point Roman actually stood up like he was going to leave, but Triple H apparently laid down some harsh truths that made both Roman and Seth realize they don't really have a choice here. The machine is bigger than both of them. The business is bigger than their personal feelings. And right now, WWE needs them to put aside their differences for the greater good of the company. And here's the question that nobody's asking: what does this mean for the Bloodline saga? Because that story isn't over. Not by a long shot. Solo Sikoa is still out there claiming to be the tribal chief. Paul Heyman is caught in the middle, potentially playing both sides. Jimmy USO is trying to figure out where his loyalties lie. And now you're throwing Seth Rollins into this mix? The same Seth Rollins who has no connection to the Bloodline story whatsoever? How does that even work narratively? Are we supposed to believe that Seth suddenly cares about Samoan family dynamics? Or is this just WWE forcing puzzle pieces together that don't actually fit? Triple H allegedly pitched this as a new era for WWE, the new Shield era, as he's reportedly calling it internally. But this isn't about recreating the past. This is about weaponizing the past to combat the present. Roman and Seth aren't putting on tactical vests and coming through the crowd like the old days. This is different. This is two war-torn veterans who have been beaten down by their respective enemies, realizing that the only way they survive is by temporarily setting aside their pride and their history to fight a common threat. It's Game of Thrones level storytelling, where former enemies have to team up to fight a greater evil, except this is happening in a wrestling ring instead of Westeros. The backstage reaction to this meeting has been explosive. Other wrestlers are reportedly buzzing about what this means for the entire roster. Because if Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins are teaming up, who's safe? What does this mean for the Intercontinental Championship picture that Seth has been dominating? What does this mean for the World Championship scene on SmackDown where Roman has been lurking? Are we going to see these two men actually competing for singles titles while also working together? That's the kind of complex storytelling that makes wrestling fascinating, but it's also the kind of thing that can fall apart spectacularly if not executed perfectly. And let's talk about the real winners in this situation, Solo Sikoa and Bronson Reed. Because think about it. Solo has been trying to establish himself as the dominant force in WWE, separate from Roman's shadow. And what better way to legitimize that than by being the guy who forced Roman Reigns to go crawling back to Seth Rollins for help? That's not weakness on Solo's part, that's the ultimate power move. He's broken the tribal chief so thoroughly that Roman has to team up with his mortal enemy just to have a chance at survival. That's real heel heat. That's the kind of storytelling that creates genuine emotional investment. And Bronson Reed? This man has been an absolute monster since moving to the main roster full-time. The tsunami senton, the sheer violence he brings to every match, the way he systematically destroyed everyone in his path, including Seth Rollins multiple times. Reed should be thrilled about this development because now he gets to say he's so dangerous that it took the Shield reforming just to stop him. That's legendary status right there. But here's what worries me about this whole situation, and I want you to really think about this. WWE has a terrible track record with reunions. How many times have we seen legendary tag teams or factions get back together, only for it to fall completely flat? How many times have we been disappointed by nostalgia cash grabs that didn't live up to the original magic? The Shield's initial run from 2012 to 2014 was lightning in a bottle. It was three unknown guys from developmental who were given the ball and ran with it, creating one of the most impactful factions in WWE history. Every reunion since then has been diminishing returns. The 2017 reunion was fun but forgettable. The various one-off reunions over the years have felt forced and hollow. So why should this time be any different? What's changed? Well, for one thing, the stakes are higher. This isn't just Roman and Seth putting on the tactical gear for a nostalgia pop. This is a desperate alliance between two men who legitimately have their backs against the wall. This is storytelling with actual consequences and actual motivation beyond "remember when we were cool together?" And that's what gives me hope that Triple H might actually pull this off. The social media reaction has been insane. Twitter is absolutely melting down with fans divided into camps. You've got the Shield diehards who are ready to buy all the new merchandise and relive the glory days. You've got the purists who are furious that WWE is tainting the Shield's legacy without Dean Ambrose. You've got the Roman stans who think this makes their tribal chief look weak. You've got the Seth supporters who think this is beneath the visionary. And then you've got people like me who are conflicted because on one hand, this is blatant emotional manipulation, but on the other hand, it's so well executed that I can't help but be invested. And that's the thing about Triple H's WWE. Love it or hate it, you can't ignore it. He's created an environment where every decision feels significant, where every backstage meeting gets reported and analyzed, where every potential storyline twist becomes a major talking point across the wrestling community. This isn't the predictable, paint-by-numbers WWE of years past. This is wrestling that feels dangerous again, that feels unpredictable, that makes you actually want to tune in every week to see what happens next. Sources are indicating that we could see the first physical manifestation of this new alliance as soon as the next major premium live event. We're talking about Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins potentially teaming up in tag team action against Solo Sikoa and a partner, or possibly a fatal four-way situation involving Bronson Reed. The possibilities are endless, and that's what makes this so exciting and so frustrating at the same time. Because WWE has the ball right now. They have our attention. The question is, what are they going to do with it? Here's my prediction, and you can screenshot this and come back to it in 6 months. This alliance is going to be rocky from the start. Roman and Seth are going to have trust issues. There are going to be moments where they almost come to blows. There are going to be miscommunications and near betrayals. But slowly, grudgingly, they're going to find a rhythm. They're going to remember why the Shield was so dominant in the first place. And just when we start to believe in this partnership, just when we start to think that maybe, just maybe, Roman and Seth can coexist, that's when Triple H is going to pull the rug out from under us. Because that's what he does. That's what makes him the cerebral assassin. The bigger question is, what happens to the rest of the roster when Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins are working together? These are two men who have main event WrestleMania multiple times. These are two men who have held every major championship in WWE. These are two men who, when they're firing on all cylinders, are absolutely untouchable. So how do you book around that? How do you make sure they don't overshadow everyone else? How do you balance giving fans what they want to see while also building the future of the company? That's the tightrope that Triple H is walking right now, and honestly, I don't envy him, because no matter what he does, someone's going to be mad. If he pushes Roman and Seth too hard, people will complain about old-timers taking up TV time. If he doesn't push them hard enough, people will complain that the reunion feels pointless. It's a no-win situation, which is probably why he's being so calculated about every move. The backstage meeting ended with all three men shaking hands, according to our sources. But here's the thing about handshakes in WWE, they don't mean anything. How many times have we seen handshakes that led to immediate betrayals? How many times have we seen alliances formed in Triple H's office that fell apart before they even made it to television? So while the optics of Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins shaking hands with the game overseeing everything might seem like a done deal, I'm not convinced this is as solid as WWE wants us to believe. And that's exactly how they want us to feel. That's the beauty of this storyline. We should be skeptical. We should be questioning everyone's motives. We should be wondering if this is all part of some larger plan that we can't see yet. Because wrestling is at its best when we're not entirely sure what's real and what's fiction, when we're not entirely sure who to trust and who to suspect. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to sound off in the comments right now. Do you think this new Shield era is going to work? Do you think Roman and Seth can put aside their differences? Or is this doomed to fail from the start? Do you think Triple H is a genius for orchestrating this, or is he making a massive mistake? And most importantly, do you want to see this happen, or would you rather see Roman and Seth continue on their separate paths? Because your opinion matters, and the only way WWE knows what fans actually want is if we make our voices heard. This is Wrestling News CC, and we're going to be covering every single development of this story as it unfolds. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on because this is going to be a wild ride, and you're not going to want to miss a single moment of what could be the most significant storyline in WWE this year. The new Shield era is here, whether we like it or not, and wrestling is about to get very interesting.